لتحصلوا على الملايين ليس لكم إلا المحامي لورنس قاجي، خبرة طويلة في الإصابات وحوادث السقوط والسيارات، يتحدثون لغتكم، يحاربون من أجلكم. المحامي لورنس قاجي، الاستشارات مجانية ولا يستلمون أتعابهم إلا بعد إكمال القضية. زوروهم على 18000 West 9 Mile Road Suite 1400 Southfield. اتصلوا على المحامي لورنس قاجي 248-702-6641 248-702-6641.
أعزائي المستمعين، أهلا وسهلا بكم مرة أخرى وبرنامج المحامي لورنس قاجي. معي في الاستوديو المحامي لورنس قاجي. Welcome Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you so much for having us today.
وأيضا معنا في الاستوديو المحامي جان شرودر. Welcome Mr. John.
Thank you again for having us. Always a pleasure.
ودائما معنا الأخت العزيزة الباراليغال تمارا. أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا وسهلا
بك. طبعا دائما احنا كل أسبوع نتحدث عن موضوع معين، وفي بعض الأحيان نفس الموضوع يعني نكمله في حلقة ثانية أو ثالثة في بعض الأحيان، يعني لأنه ساعة كاملة مرات ما تكفي لشرح موضوع معين، فنأجل لأنه تكملة الموضوع في حلقة ثانية أو في بعض الأحيان 3 حلقات. تمام؟
صحيح.
فاليوم راح نتحدث عن أيضا مواضيع جديدة، والمحامي لورنس أيضا عنده قصص جديدة وكيسز نيو كيسز يعني. فتفضلي استمارة.
بالضبط مثل ما تفضلت، يعني قضايا صايرة بالحقيقة راح نتكلم عنها. We are going to talk to, Mr. Sahar said some of the subject we talk about, it takes 1 hour is not enough. Sometimes we speak about it for 2 shows and sometimes 3 shows. But today we are going to talk about cases that that happened in reality. So, and we are going to go over some subjects of the settlements, right?
Yeah, it's funny, right? So we have certain topics that we always want to talk about.
Yes.
Sometimes they take longer than we think. Sometimes it's shorter. It just kind of depends on how the conversation goes, because nothing's scripted, right? So the only thing that we talk about before this show is certain topics, right? Just topics. Exactly. For example, today the topic is going to be how to get the max amount of money for your case. Just topics. We don't talk about specifics, so we have no idea how long it's going to take usually. So
yes. عادة احنا من قبل ما نجي للاستوديو نقرر شنو بس ايش راح نقول، شنو هو العنوان مال الاستوديو هاليوم. فمن ننطب بالتفاصيل لانه ومرات نتوقعها بانه راح نخلص بسرعه، بس هي لا تاخذ بعد اكثر، فيعتمد. وهم هوايه ناخذ مواضيع نشوف المستمعين شو يحبون يسمعون، شو يريدون يعرفون اكثر، شو يريدون نعيده، هم نسوي هالشيء. هاليوم راح نحكي على شلون راح نحصل على أعلى شيء إذا عندك أنت حادث سيارة.
So I just wanted to bring up, so before the show started, Saad asked me, he said, why don't you learn how to speak Arabic better? I said
I will not say anything.
Yeah, I said a few words in Arabic that weren't proper, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was telling him about a funny story. So, before, when I was working on cases myself, I used to have to handle all the depositions in the office essentially. And, oftentimes my client would be Arabic speaking and they needed a translator for those depositions.
Yeah.
And, sometimes the good thing is I understand Arabic very well. So whenever my client's saying something that's, a translator's not translating properly,
that's wrong.
Yeah, I would always jump in and say, actually, that's not what they
وأنت
said.
غلط.
That's not, yes, that's not what they said. And, you know, I've done this a few times, and I was telling you about one time where the translator got very upset and it
And
just,
they leave.
and they left. Yes.
قبل ما نبدي هاليوم مالتنا الموضوع، استاذ ساهر من اجى استاذ المحامي لورنس ساله، قال له انت ليش يقول له شلونك وحكى وياه، قال له انت ليش ما تتعلم عربي احسن؟ اي ف هو يفتهم عربي كل زين، كل زين يفتهم، بس اللغه بالحكي شويه اصعب. فلأنه هو قبل كان هو يسوي كل الافادات اللي بالمكتب من كان بعده واحده، فيعرف من اكو مترجم وعنده الزبون مالتنا عربي ويترجم، والمترجم يترجم غلط، يقول له انت تترجم غلط، انت كان مو هو هيك قصده، ومرات المترجم يصير عصبي ويطلع.
You know, Lawrence.
I was going to say, one time we actually had a motion on it where we actually had to go to the judge, and they were saying one thing, and I'm saying, Judge, no, I understand the language perfectly, and that's not what they said. And it actually made it up to court one time, and we're actually litigating essentially this issue.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you. Well, I'll let you translate that, and then I have a story too on the same thing.
What language?
I'll let you know. You're going to see. I'm going to explain it.
حتى مرة كانوا وصعدت المحكمة، وكانوا بالمحكمة، والمترجم اللي بالمحكمة هم كان يترجم غلط، فقال له للحاكم، هو قال له أنا أفتهم اللغة بس ما أقدر أحكيها، بس المترجم ده يترجم غلط إلك. يعني وصلت لهالمرحلة العليا.
هذا كل زين طبعا.
I mean, look, the issue becomes if they translate something that's not proper, it's going to go into a transcript, right? And from there, they can use that to file motions to dismiss your case and to hurt your case, essentially.
Yeah.
صح. كل الحكي اللي يروح يعني اللي تصير بالإفادة هذا كله مسجل. فمن تسجل يقدر الطرف الآخر يرفع قضية بأنه يسقط القضية، يوقفها لو ما تمشي، لو تصير ضدك.
صحيح.
إذا كلمة
واحدة غلط.
بالضبط. فلازم واحد يكون جدا يعني منتبه.
Yeah. So I actually have an interesting story.
Yes, what's yours?
It wasn't that I spoke the foreign language, but I had talked to the client ahead of time for an extended period of time. And so I knew what the answers to these questions were going to be. And when the translation came out of one of their answers, I kind of looked at the translator because I'd had my own translator that I was working with before.
Use your eyes.
No, listen.
Before the deposition,
they sit together.
Yes. He had a translator from the office.
So I had a translator from my office at the time. This was years and years ago. Yeah. But I had a translator from my office, and I'd spoken with the client, and so I knew what the answer to the question was. And even though I don't understand the Arabic words, I hear them enough that I kind of get familiar with them a little bit. So what had happened was she gave the same answer that she'd given me, an hour before. Okay.
Just translated.
And the translator gave a completely different response. And I stopped the translator and I said, that's not what my client said. And she looked at me like I was insane because she knew, I assume she assumed that I didn't speak Arabic. Right. And I went, that's not what she said. And then, so we redid the question like 3 times and finally we got it right. And what it turned out was that the translator was speaking a different dialect or understood a different dialect. And so the words were being essentially mistranslated. And ultimately what we had to do in that case, I actually had to cancel the remainder of the deposition because it kept happening. And I redid the deposition at another time. So
probably looking at you like, what the heck is
this?
Yeah,
I know, right? Like, how does he even know? Like, but I knew because like some of the things that they were saying, like I'd just gone over them and I knew that they were using the same words in Arabic and I didn't understand the Arabic words, but I knew what that translated to.
I understand
and
that.
the translation wasn't coming through correctly. So I was like, this isn't right.
طبعا أي واحد عنده سؤال استفسار يقدر يتصل بينا على الهواء على 586-825-2015 586-825-2015. Yes.
واحدة من الأشياء همينة من نطلب هسه المترجم ما نقول بس عربي، نقول عراقي، لبناني. إذا أكو هواية من الجالية العراقية مالتهم مو قوية، يحتاجون لو مثل ما انت هسه تفضلت صوره لو لهجاتكم بالضبط. سو لو مصري لو يمني
تفرق
جدا تفرق.
نعم.
فالزبون ما له يعني يعني شو يسوي هو؟ يعني اذا تجيب مترجم لبناني الزبون يمني خلاص انتهى، ماكو قضيه.
غلط، لازم اليمني يجي يمني
بالضبط. فاحنا دائما يعني
تختارون
نختار we specify which Arabic dialect we need.
اي لانه different
Yes.
يعني they pronounce it different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean even dates. So even dates I found.
ما ترجمتي اللي قاله.
اوكي. حتى الايام، احنا الايام هنا اول شيء الشهر بعدين اليوم. بالعربي احنا اليوم بعدين الشهر. فلازم دائما نكون واضحين بالضبط. انا دائما اقول شهر 9 يوم فلان، حتى اقول يعني الشهر اول وبعدين اليوم بالضبط.
Right. That's what I was going to say is like I've noticed in translations that they get days or months or dates wrong a lot because depending on the dialect there are different dates that sound similar in the different dialects.
Only when it's more than 12 it's different. They know.
That could be. I don't know what it is. I just know that I know what the date is and they're giving me a translation of a different date and I'm like that can't be what the person just said.
Yes.
So
مثل ما تفضل المحامي جان، احنا دائما من اكو افاده نحضر الزبون للافاده قبل ساعه. ف المحامين اللي بالمكتب يستخدمون المترجمين اللي بالمكتب ونقول بالضبط شنو الاشياء اللي نترجمها له وهو يسجلها كلها. جتي وقت الافاده واجا المترجم فيسالون نفس الاسئله، المترجم قالها بطريقه غلط.
هذا مو نفس المترجم، هذا مالكم اي مترجم
مالهم. المحامي جنبه عليه قال له انت غلط. هو ظل صافن. شلون انت تعرف هذا لغه عربيه لانه الاسئله كلها موجوده. طلع بينه هو يحكي بالضبط مثل ما قلنا غير لهجه ثانيه. ووقفنا الافاده كلها وكنسلناها واجلناها الى غير يوم وجبنا مترجم
من وراء استاذ جان.
طبعا he's awesome.
Yeah, that's good, you know.
Yes.
You get these things from experience. Until it happens, you know, you never know. I mean, you learn these things as they happen.
الخبرة تلعب دور، المحامي الشاطر يلعب دور، هذه كلها. طبعا دائما الاستشارات في مكاتب المحامين لورنس قاجي هي مجانية، حتى لو ايش قد ما تطول اذا بالتليفون ولا تروحون كلها مجانية. واللي يحب يتصل بيهم يقدر يتصل على 248-702-6641. هو هذا رقم تليفون المحامي لورنس، يتحدثون اللغة العربية طبعا. واللي يحب يتصل بينا الآن احنا موجودين، يقدر يتصل بينا على 586-825-2015. أي سؤال عندكم عن أي حوادث سيارات أو حتى أسئلة خارج الموضوع اللي يتكلمون به الأساتذة. Yes.
All right, let's go. Let's get started. So the
we
topic,
didn't start yet?
No, we haven't started yet. I was just simply giving a funny story that we were talking about before the radio.
Okay,
look, it took us 15 minutes.
We will start now.
You never know what's going to happen, right?
We have 1 hour.
Yes.
No problem.
So this is a question that I get all the time. Obviously, these are civil cases, and they come down to damages and money. So, question I get all the time is, how much is the most money I can recover from my car accident case?
سؤال دائما ينطرح من الزبون. أول سؤال من يجي هو صح متضرر،
هو متأذي
متكسر، بس أول سؤال ينسأل إيش قد يطلع لي فلوس.
And like every good lawyer, the answer starts with it depends.
Right.
Yes.
فعلا هو هذا الشيء اللي أنا أشوفه دائما. وأنتم كمحامين أتصور هذا يعني 100%.
Of course.
So at that stage of the case when we do a sign up, if any lawyer will tell you how much your case is worth, they're not being truthful. There is no one that can tell you how much the value of your case is at the time they meet you, and I'm going to tell you why.
فمن اول ما يجي الزبون وخاصه الحادث هسه وصاير، ما حد يقدر يقول هذا ايش قد هاي القضيه ايش قد يعني حقها. واللي اي محامي ينطي سعر القضيه هسه حادث هسه وصاير، هذا مو صحيح نهائيا.
ما يقدر.
I promise the listeners, if a lawyer gives you an amount that your case is worth at the beginning of your case, it's not going to be the same as the amount at the end of your case.
نعم.
مثل ما تفضل المحامي قال أنا يعني
أتراهن
بأنه إذا أكو أي محامي ينطيك سعر على القضية، من تسوي تسوية على القضية تأخذ نفس السعر. مستحيل ماكو شيء.
So, and the reason is it's just based on certain factors, which I'll go over. And the first factor I want us to talk about is to establish essentially how much money is out there to get. So what is the top number that you can get? We're not talking about value. Your case may be worth millions of dollars and may be worth $10,000, right? We're talking about if your case is worth X amount, how can you get there? What's the most money essentially that you can get if you have the best case in the world, let's say, for example?
مثل ما قلنا بالبداية ما حد يقدر ينطي أي سعر على القضية، وهالشغلة أكو نقاط يعني مهمة راح نمشي بيها وراح نخبر المستمعين. أول شيء بأنه خلينا نقول بأنه أنت قضيتك كل الزينة. شنو هي الأشياء اللي راح تعتمد قضيتك عليها حتى ناخذ أقصى مبلغ ممكن من هاي القضية؟
So the first thing, obviously, John, we look at is the policy limits, right? So what's the other driver's policy limits? That's the first thing we look at, because it's essentially it's easier to get money from an insurance policy than it is in other ways, which I'll kind of go over.
And those other ways may not even be possible.
Right.
So أول شيء نشوف بأنه السبب الحادث إيش قد البوليسي مالته. هاي وحدة. إيش قد الحد الأعلى مال البوليسي مالته.
Yeah. The one good thing about that is Michigan changed this law recently to, before the minimum policy in Michigan was $100,000. Now it is $250,000. Obviously, there are some exceptions, but the general rule right now is you must have at least $250,000 in bodily injury coverage.
Well, it used to be 20,000.
It used to be 20,000.
Used to be 20,000.
That's right.
Yeah.
بالبداية ميشيغان ستيت كانت الحد الأعلى للعطل وضرر كان 20,000، بعدين سووه 100,000، وهسه بنتغير القانون سووه 250,000. هذا فشي يعني لصالح
المتأذي.
Now there is a waiver that people can sign now to get as low as 50, technically still, but by default the minimum is supposed to be 250, correct? Right. Yeah. So but yeah.
أكو تقدر تأخذ يعني ورقة خاصة بأنه يحذفون 250 إلى 50,000، بس بها شروط جدا عالية مو سهلة واحد يقدر يحصلها.
And maybe we should just mention the policy limit that we're talking about is the bodily injury policy limit. So we're talking about when another driver is at fault and has hit you in a car accident. We're talking about their policy and what they have purchased.
Exactly.
Yeah.
وأنا من نقول مع العطل وضرر بالضبط بأنه أنت ما كنت غلطان بالحادث وأحد ثاني سبب الحادث.
Yeah. The other thing we look at, John, is umbrella policies, right? So, Tamara, can you explain to the listeners what an umbrella policy is? How you can get, obviously more coverage than your normal car insurance coverage?
And basically, it's a supplemental coverage above and beyond the bodily injury limit.
Exactly.
Yeah. كل واحد احنا نحكي على الانشورنس مال السيارة. اكو انشورنس آخر، وهذا كل واحد يعني ما مجبور تاخذه، كل واحد بكيفه. بس
it's usually people that have assets or have a lot of money in their bank accounts and stuff like that.
اللي عندهم مثلا أموال كبيرة بالبنك، اللي عندهم هواية أراضي، أو عندهم يعني من هاي الأشياء، شو يسوون؟ يشترون إنشورنس آخر يسموه أمبريلا إنشورنس، اللي هي إحنا مثل نقول الشمسية، لأنه كبيرة وتغطي كل شيء. so هاي إضافة إلى الانشورنس اللي عندك الأصلي بالضبط. اكو ناس يسووها اكو ناس ما يسووها، بس واحد
المتمكن زايد،
مو بس المتمكن زايد، يعني عندك بيت باسمك، سياراتك باسمك، وانت اسم الله ضربت احد وصار بيه شيء، يقدرون يجون ورا بيتك وسياراتك وكل شيء ياخذوها. بينما اذا عندك امبريلا باليسي انت متغطي من كل، يعني
شركة التأمين الأخرى
هي تكون تقدر هم بنفس الشركة التأمين اللي عندك إياها
تسوي
بيها. Yes.
Yeah, if they offer, you can get for the same.
If they
insurance.
offer,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
But some insurance companies won't go above 250 or 500, for example. So you have to actually buy another policy with a different company for the remaining.
Or the same company, just as a separate umbrella. But yeah, either.
Yeah, I know. Like when I think it was. I can't remember exactly, but I think when I was shopping around, I think Safeco didn't have an umbrella policy option.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. مو كل الانشورنسز عندهم تقدر تختار امبريلا بوليسي، بس اذا ما عندهم تقدر تروح على اي غير انشورنس شركه ثانيه تختارها. But like for example AAA, they do offer umbrella policies for sure.
Which is a good idea, you know, if you like, you know, God forbid you get into a car accident that's worth more than your limits, you want to have that extra protection, essentially.
Yeah, but we have a call.
Oh, great.
تفضلوا.
مرحبا أخ ساهر.
مرحبا عيني.
أقدر أحكي ويا محامي بس سؤال، بس عندي بس سؤال.
تفضلي.
شلونك حبيبتي؟
الحمد لله، أنت شلونك؟
الحمد لله والله زينة. عندي سؤال، يمن كنا ببغداد، مو سقط صدام، سقطت بغداد.
اي
نعم، صارت بالطلقات ورشاشة، جتي طلقة بيا رشاشة.
اي
ورحنا لدكتور عن مستشفى الكرامة. قالوا ما نقدر ننيمك، مليانة هذا حصو مليانة شظايا.
اوكي.
نعم، وجينا هنا، نعم تتوجعني هواي، نعم ما يقدرون يساعدوني لأمريكا مثلا تنطيني فشيرات بشي. ما اقدر اسويها، نعم عمليه ما اقدر. قالوا هناك لجنه قاعده الدكاتره اللي قالوا اذا نسويش عمليه ما تقدرين تمشين، تصيرين اسم الله بعيده عنك شلل. هنا جيت قالوا اما سويته، يعني بس توجعني هواي تتوجعني، حتى بس امشي منها المطبخ وبس ما اقدر امشي بيها.
Okay, عزيزتي. شكرا.
I'm going to need a translation for that one.
Yes.
The one thing I didn't understand was say Karama, what does that mean?
مستشفى الكرامة. Hospital in
the hospital's name. Okay, got it.
Iraq.
Okay.
So she was in Iraq when Saddam Hussein was
Okay.
Whatever.
When Saddam Hussein was in power.
Well, not in power, when they took him down.
Right.
Okay. So there was a lot of shooting and everything.
Sure.
So she got injured.
Okay.
And they couldn't take her in the hospital because the hospital was full and for any other reasons. So then they came over here. She went to the doctors. They sat all together. To see what's going on. They recommended that she cannot have any surgery done, and because if they do it, probably she will be paralyzed. So will affect also her life. So her question was, is there any way I can collect anything from the state because I cannot work, I cannot do anything.
So from what state is she trying to collect
Here, from Michigan.
So she's asking about getting Social Security disability, possibly.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, there's a couple different things that she may or may not be eligible for. I mean, without a lot more information, I don't think there's a real way to fully,
because it's from different country.
It's not necessarily that. It's not necessarily that. If my understanding of what you're saying is correct, she's not necessarily asking about a lawsuit. She's just asking about what benefits might be available to her.
Benefits.
So if that's the case, I mean, there are a lot of different social assistance programs that you can actually go out to the state of Michigan website to look at. So the state of Michigan has a website with different social programs that includes things like
she's from Canada,
food stamps and other things like Social Security.
لا ما عندي، يعني راديو ما اسمع بالراديو، يعني شو قال الدكتور؟
Okay. مثل ما
كنت بالدورة كلنا قاعدين بالدورة.
اي ما يخالف مو على هاي هسه خل تقول لك ايش قال.
انت من ميشيغان لو انت من
من كندا حبيبتي من كندا يعني.
انت من كندا.
نعم.
from Canada.
Okay. That's going to be even harder because I don't know anything about the
assume they have a
programs in
similar
Canada.
system that we do that you can get Social Security disability from. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
احسن شيء بانه تشوفي لك محامي مال سوشيال سيكيورتي وتحكي له قصتك ويشوفون بانه يقيمون بانه هل انت يطلع لك راتب من هناك. احنا ما نشتغل بالقانون الكندي بس بالامريكي واللي هو المخصص للميشيغان فقط.
اوكي عزيز. اوكي
حبيبي.
اوكي شكرا عزيز.
اهلا وسهلا.
If she I don't know, I was going to say if she wants to call our office, maybe we can get her in touch with a Canada lawyer that handles Social Security disability.
Okay.
Or not Social Security disability, but whatever the program.
Well,
is.
yeah, I'm not even sure.
Yeah,
I don't know if I know what the programs are, to be honest, on that one.
Either. To an attorney in Canada for that kind of stuff, and they can help.
Yeah, you know, one thing that we don't mention all the time is that we are Michigan attorneys, so our area of practice is really focused on the state of Michigan.
Right.
Yes. So, مثل ما تفضل المحامي احنا اكثر شيء شغلنا هو ميشيغان فقط ميشيغان. بس في حالات الحوادث السيارات هم عايشين بكندا بس هم جايين زارين بميشيغان فذاك الوقت يصير غير شكل يقدرون يتصلون بينا واحنا نقدر نساعدهم بالضبط مال ميشيغان بالضبط.
طبعا اي واحد عنده سؤال استفسار يقدر يتصل بينا على 586-825-2015. الحلقة منقولة على صفحة إذاعة صوت الغد وأيضا منقولة على اليوتيوب فيوتشر راديو ميشيغان. موجودة الأرقام كلها على الشاشة.
But if people have other questions that we can answer, we're always happy to help.
Absolutely.
So feel free to call in.
Absolutely.
دائما اتصلوا اللي نقدر نساعد
مهما كان السؤال.
إذا ما قدرنا احتمال نقدر ندسكم على أي غير أحد يساعدكم. فرجاء حتى اتصلوا للمكتب 248-702-6641.
6641.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
So we're talking about establishing the amount that we can go after a car accident, essentially, right? So we spoke about policy limits, we spoke about umbrella policies. What if the other driver didn't have a BI policy? What if they had no insurance, essentially? And
هذا الخطورة.
أكثر شيء واحد إحنا يعني نشوفه أول ما يجي الزبون نشوف هل اللي الغلطان عنده انشورنس لو لا. بميشيغان مع الأسف في هواية ناس ما عندهم انشورنس. فإذا ماكو انشورنس شنو اللي نقدر نسويه بأنه الشخص متضرر وشنو اللي عنده التغطية.
John, what happens if there's the other driver doesn't have insurance? Do you have any outs?
You sure do. There's a few. So the first one that, of course, is the one we'd usually pursue first.
I think I know which one you're thinking about.
Is the uninsured motorist.
I have a question related to this.
Of course. Yeah. Well, what you want to translate that, and then we'll take your question.
Yes, please.
The UM coverage, essentially, right?
Yeah. Uninsured or underinsured motorist coverages can apply if there is either no insurance on the part of the other party or insufficient insurance. That is, they have a low limit, and then you have a UM or rather UIM limit that is above that.
Okay. إذا الشخص الغلطان الانشورنس مالته قليل يعني واطي جدا لو ما عنده انشورنس احنا المفروض عندنا تغطية على الانشورنس اللي احنا نشتريه الشخصي مالتنا اللي هو اسمه uninsured و underinsured اللي هو بانه لو اللي ضربنا ما عنده انشورنس لو اللي ضربنا انشورنس قليل اللي يقدرون يرجعون التغطية الباقي المبلغ من الانشورنس الشخصي مال المتضرر. تفضل
سؤالي.
You had a question.
Yes. سؤالي نفس الشيء احنا قلنا واحد ما عنده انشورنس. هاي وحده. واحد سوى حادث سيارة مثلا مسروقة.
اوكي.
مصادفين هيجي قضية انتم.
طبعا.
مسروقة وسوى الحادث.
What's مسروقة?
مسروقة is
You tripped me up today.
Stolen car.
Oh, stolen car.
If somebody is driving a stolen car. What happened?
That is probably one of the most unfortunate circumstances that you can be a part of.
But it does depend. It does depend.
So essentially, if somebody steals another person's car,
Right.
and that let's say somebody steals your car, from
Okay.
God forbid you. Somebody
Yes.
steals your car,
yeah.
and they hit somebody. Your insurance company is not going to extend coverage to that accident.
I am going to say, though, I actually have a good story on this
Yes.
because I actually did a court of appeals case on this very issue.
So do you disagree with that?
It's you're generally correct, but the thing is, it depends on the intent of the party who's injured and whether they knew it was a stolen vehicle. Because if someone steals a vehicle and then, let's say, obviously you keep poor company if this is the case, but let's say you have a friend who's stolen a vehicle. They drive up to you in their quote unquote new car that they've just acquired, and they offer you a ride. You don't know it's stolen. You're involved in an accident in that stolen vehicle. You never had any reason to believe it was a stolen vehicle. You are actually eligible for coverage because you were not part of the theft of that vehicle. So the person who's stealing the vehicle, though, will not be eligible for
I'm
benefits.
talking about the person that got hit from the stolen vehicle.
Oh, you're talking about the person gets
I'm
hit
talking
from the stolen vehicle.
Our client gets hit by somebody who just stole a vehicle. That their third party BI policy will not apply to that case. Essentially, is what I'm saying.
Yes, the stolen vehicles policy will not apply, but
Exactly.
you could still have the uninsured
You
motorist
can still have
claim.
uninsured motorists, but let's say that person had a $100,000 or $250,000 policy on their case.
Yes,
That insurance company is not going to extend
that's
coverage.
true. That's
So
true. I see what you're saying.
Essentially, got hit by someone with no insurance.
Yes.
اوكي ترجمه طويله
ترجمه طويله
لانه بها عده سيناريوهات انت قلت
واحده
بالضبط فراح اجي على سؤالك انت
نعم
اذا واحد دا يسوق
سيارة
مسروقة
وسوى حادث
نعم اذا يعرف بانه هو سارقها ويعرف هي مسروقه وصار حادث وتضرر الشخص اللي بالسياره اللي هو اللي يسوقها وهو عنده انشورنس الانشورنس مالته صفر ما تقبل نهائيا لانه يعرفون هو سارق السياره اذا ضربك واحد
سيارة مبيوقة
والسياره مسروقه ما تقدر تروح ورا العطل وضرر مالته لانه الانشورنس مالته راح يصير صفر بس تقدر ترجع على الانشورنس مالتك على ان انشورد واندر انشورد. اوكي السيناريو الثالث
نعم
اذا السياره مسروقه صديقك اجى انت ما تعرف قال لك هاي سيارتي جديده هو سارقها وقال لك تعال انا اوصلك وصار عندك حادث. اوكي ذاك الوقت انت الك تغطيه بس إلى ماكو تغطيه. سو هاي اللي
السيناريو هاي كلها
هاي مو كلها اكو هوايه بعد سيناريوهات بس حسب اللي هاي خلينا نقول التاب 3 هاي اعلى ثلاثه.
And I should say, Lawrence, you're absolutely right. In the context of a bodily injury case, for the purposes of the stolen vehicles insurance, you're absolutely right. That won't cover. And what I was referring to in terms of essentially the person who stole it versus someone who might be just an innocent party in the car, that has to do more with the PIP benefits that we've discussed in prior sessions and whether or not they'd be eligible for even PIP coverage. Because if you're involved in a stolen vehicle case, well, that's not a good idea.
Right. And so the last thing, establishing the amount, is something that I personally don't like to do.
Mm-hmm.
I always try to talk my clients, I'll talk to them about this and, being very careful with this certain way of getting money. And that's, going after the other person's assets. I always advise my clients that it's not the best course. And oftentimes, most people don't have a bank account that has a ton of money in it or a house that's paid off. So I personally don't think it's even worth it in most cases to do. But obviously, this is what I have a conversation about, with my clients, and it's kind of up to them at that point and what they want to do.
And there's another complication, if I can just add to that, and that is if you've been hit by someone who is driving an uninsured motor vehicle, right? They couldn't afford the coverage on their car. Mm-hmm. Not only are their assets likely very small, if any, but they can declare bankruptcy, and the bankruptcy will actually wipe out any judgment you were able to get in the first place.
It's that easy.
And so it's very complicated and oftentimes, frankly, kind of expensive to try to do a collections action, which is kind of what we're talking about here. But with that said, it depends on the case, like anything else.
مثل ما تفضل المحامي لورنس قال الشغلة الثالثة إذا واحد يسوق سيارة غير مؤمنة ما بها تأمين وهو ما يسويها، احنا ما نسويها بالمكتب نهائيا. ما نروح ورا الشخص اللي سبب الحادث وهو ما عنده انشورنس، ما نروح وراه شخصيا.
نعم.
إذا عنده بيت، إذا عنده سيارة، إذا ما نروح ورا يعني شخصيا ورا على هاي
after his assets يعني
بالضبط. لعدة أسباب. أولا إذا ما عنده انشورنس على السيارة احتمال كلش كبير هو أموره المادية غير يعني مؤهلة. داتشة مثل ما نقول قلت أسويها يعني شوية.
نثق فيها.
So I've already made clear that I don't like to do this.
I just said it very clear.
Yeah,
we don't do
there
it.
is one exception to my rule of me not liking to do this, I guess.
Okay, so بأنه ما نروح ورا الشخص اللي الشغلة الثانية يقدر الشخص اللي إذا نرفع عليه قضية شخصيا يقدر يرفع هو قضية روحه بانكربسي اللي هو يطلع
تروح الفلوس كلها.
بالضبط. البانكربسي اللي هي يعني يطلع
You can defeat the judgment.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm thinking what is bankruptcy in Arabic?
Oh.
إفلاس.
أفلاس. Yes. شكرا.
Good.
Yes.
Between the three of you, you guys will get it, not me.
So واحد إذا يقدر هو يقدم على الإفلاس
الإفلاس.
والشخص اللي متضرر كل شيء ما يطلع له ولا.
هو إحنا ترى جماعتنا.
أي.
أصلاً ما يعرفون كلمة الإفلاس، يعرفون bankruptcy.
Yes, yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Our people, they know bankruptcy more than they
know the Arabic
term.
Yes.
So, but I do have one exception to this where I do think, I would probably give my client a thumbs up to kind of go after. And that's if the car or whatever, truck is owned by a company. So if it's an Amazon truck that just rear-ended my client, I will go after the company. Yes.
طبعا شركة.
That's a different story.
أسويها بس لسبب واحد أسويها إذا الزبون مالتنا انضرب عن طريق شركة كبيرة اللي مثلا يعني
بيبسي، أمازون،
يعني أي شركات جدا كبيرة.
نعم.
هاي مو بسهولة يقدمون إفلاس كلش غير شكل
قضية تتبدل السيناريو كله.
بالضبط تمشي بغير طريق.
I'm going to say, with that said, commercial vehicles in particular usually have pretty solid limits, and we don't have to be too concerned about that.
Even if they don't, I can promise you Amazon is not going out of business from a judgment that we're getting against them.
That is probably true.
Even if it's billions.
That is probably true.
Yes.
They will not.
Yeah.
So essentially what it comes down to is you get a judgment. The money is there because the company has money that, if you do have to pursue a judgment, they're going to have money in their accounts. If I have to pursue a $1 million judgment against Amazon, they're going to have money in their account to pay for it, right?
Yes.
They're not going to file for bankruptcy.
No,
never.
I just said
Right?
that. I said الشركات الكبار ما راح تقدر تسوي مو بسهولة تسوي bankruptcy
على مود $1 مليون.
على مود شخص واحد متضرر، لا راح تبقى. فلذلك النسبة مضمونة بالضبط. يعني القضية تكون مضمونة أكثر مما شخص عادي بسيارة يعني يسوق طبيعية.
All right, good. So now that we've established what amount we're going after, now it's time to kind of get the value out of your case and how, the insurance companies look at cases and how they value cases essentially.
هسه حكينا شلون إن على أول شيء على شنو نشوف. أول شيء على إيش قد نقدر نجيب أعلى شيء للقضية، هاي سويناها. الشغلة الثانية شلون راح نبني القضية وشلون راح نراوي القضية للإنشورنس وش قد القضية تستاهل.
So why is this important? It's important because just because you have $1 million policy that you're going after doesn't mean you're going to get $1 million.
No.
Right, John?
Absolutely.
So it's based on certain things.
Because the policy is, generally speaking, or whatever assets you're going after, that would be the maximum.
It's the limits.
Yeah,
right?
The policy maximum or the policy limit is what you're limited to get, regardless of how valuable your case is.
So even if you have $1 million policy, your case can still be worth $5,000.
Right? Yes. هسه عرفنا الحد الأعلى للبوليسي ايش قد. مو معناته أنت خلينا نقول مليون. مو معناته أنت خلاص راح تاخذ المليون. لا، احتمال هي مليون بس أنت القضية مالتك 5000 تستاهل فقط. فشلون احنا نرتب القضية وشلون راح نمشي بالقضية ونقدمها للإنشورنس حتى تستاهل أعلى مبلغ.
Now, John, we're not saying that we need, every single one of these to recover, right? We're just going to go over a list of things that I think helps very much bring the value of your case up.
Those things which influence the value, sure.
Right. So
راح نمشي بنقاط مهمة، مو إلا كلها تكون لازم هاي النقاط، بس جزء من النقاط هاي مهمة حتى شلون نبني القضية.
Right. So, I'll just kind of go through a list. It doesn't mean that one is more important than the other. Obviously, when we do a new intake, John, the first thing we look at is the car damage and the injuries that happened from the accident.
Absolutely.
فماكو نقطة هي أهم من الأخرى ولا بالترتيب. فأول شيء من نشوف الزبون، أول شيء نطلب من أنه يراوينا صور السيارة المتضررة ونعرف شنو الأضرار الجسدية هو اللي عنده.
And this of course assumes that the person is eligible for the benefits in the first place. Right. Because
مهمة. واحدة من المهمات. نعم.
Right.
So we are.
I said it assumes that the person is eligible for benefits in the first place, of course, because of, for example, for a PIP case, there are certain eligibility requirements. For a bodily injury case, you can't be at fault.
We want all
that.
Right.
We are talking like he is eligible, and we are going forward.
Exactly.
How we are going to build the case and make the maximum out of it.
That's right.
So obviously the more damage you have to your car, it'd be better for your case. I mean, there's no real way to get. I've won a lot of cases where there's been very minimal damage, but obviously having more damage to your car helps your case.
And specifically having photos
right
of that car damage or a video or some kind of evidence is very helpful.
Right.
مثل ما قال المحامي بأنه أن تعتمد على أضرار السيارة والأضرار الجسدية. أهم شيء وراء هذا السيارة، صح مرات تيجي الإسعاف تاخذك لو شيء، دائما حاول تاخذ لو فيديو لو صور مال السيارة. مرات الضربة بالسيارة ما تكون قوية ياخذها الجسم أكثر، مو معناته بأنه إذا الضربة خفيفة ما عندك ضرر جسديا، بس هاي هم تضيف إضافة إلى القضية إذا أكو صور بها أضرار أكبر.
Right. So obviously the injuries are a big deal. So broken bones, things of that nature, TBIs. I do have a lot of cases where there isn't any broken bones. It's more of a soft tissue injury, back, neck, that sort of thing. And I've been very successful in those cases as well. But obviously, like we were talking about in the car damage, the more severe your injuries are, the better your case will be.
And just for the listeners, a TBI means a traumatic brain injury. For example, if you've hit your head, you have a concussion, and you're having mental symptomology relating to that injury, it can be classified as a traumatic brain injury or TBI.
Right.
همينة يعتمد على الأضرار الجسدية، مو لأنه أنت ما عندك كسور، لو ما عندك جروح معناته قضيتك قليلة. أكو هواية يصير أكو تمزق بالأربطة، تمزق بالعضلات، كلها هاي يعني تنضاف للقضية. طبعا أكو قضايا أكبر من قضايا إذا عندك TBI أو traumatic brain injury اللي هو أول شيء أهم شيء، هذا أكبر شيء، الضرر بالدماغ. وأكثر الحوادث السيارة هي لها علاقة بالرأس.
Yeah. And I think we spoke about this on prior shows, but the listing an injury on the police report and or going to the hospital to get checked out after an accident definitely will help your case.
Yeah. For example, if someone tells the police when asked, "Are you injured?"
Yeah, because they're going to write on the police report, right?
That's
they're going to ask
exactly
if you're injured. If you say no, they're going to put on the police report that this person was not injured specifically.
or refused medical treatment or
Yeah.
both.
Right.
Yeah.
اهم شيء همينه من يوصل الشرطه توصل يمك راح تسالك شلونك، اذا تقول زين انت متضرر تقول له حاليا ما تحس بيها، فانت اوتوماتيك راح تقول لا لان خايف
ما تريد تروح مستشفى
وما تريد تروح مستشفى وما تعرف ايش يصير. الشرطه راح تحط على التقرير، وهذا اول شيء ينسحب هو تقرير الشرطه. اول شيء راح يكتب بانه فلان زبون قال بانه هو ما متضرر، فهاي همنا نقطه
مصاب
بالضبط. اذا طلبوا من عندك تروح للمستشفى، روح للمستشفى خلي يشيكوك احسن من ماكو، لان مرات يصير اضرار داخليه انت ما تحس بيها
الا بعدين.
بالضبط.
زين شو وقت يقدر مثلا صح بعدين، لكنه ايش قد المده اللي يقدر انه قاطل اخي يقول انه ايه انا تاذيت فلان شيء.
So yeah, sorry, I'll let you translate.
Yes, Mr. Sahar is asking because John, I wanted John to know.
Yes.
See, now he understood what he said.
I saw.
Yes, so he wanted just to go for.
He wanted to answer.
So Mr. Sahar asked, what is the time limit if you didn't go after the accident to a doctor or hospital? When is a good time to go if you are hurt?
That is a great question. You want to?
Well, I was just going to talk about a case that I signed up maybe about 8 months ago. So I had a case that a client came from back home. They were involved in a car accident. They had no health insurance essentially, and they didn't know that they can treat. So for months they were living with this pain.
Wow.
And they didn't know they can go to the hospital. I have no health insurance. Who's going to pay for that? Yeah. Right. When I met with them, there was no car insurance in the household. So we were going through the assigned claims plan. I explained that there's $250,000 in medical coverage essentially that they can get. And they started treating and we're moving along with the case. I mean, it's obviously not a perfect case, but there's a very good reason why my client didn't treat for a few months after the accident.
I'm going to add to that
ماكو فد وقت محدد. بس كل ما أسرع كل ما أحسن.
صح.
عندنا مثال جدا يعني عندنا بالشركة قضية هم جايين جدا هنا ما عندهم health insurance، ما عندهم insurance صحي، وصاروا بحال السيارة. هم لأشهر قاعدين بالبيت متأذيين لأنه يخافون يروحون لأنهم ما يقدرون يدفعون. التقوا بالمحامي قعدوا وياهم، اتضح بأنه هم همنا ما عندهم انشورنس مال سيارة، بما أنه هم كانوا عايشين بميشيغان، فرحنا عن طريق ميشيغان ستيت وفتحنا لهم قضية ولهم حق إلى 250,000 علاج. وصح هي مو من واحدة من القضايا الكبرى صح. بس هذا هم الشخص خدمة بالضبط. دا يتعالجون ودا تمشي القضية
خلاص.
يس.
فيعني أي واحد عنده هيجي موضوع هيجي قضية يقدر يتصل يسأل يعني حتى لا يبقى مغمض
بالضبط.
فيتصل بالمحامي لورنس على 248-702-6641. Yeah.
So I want to add to that because there certainly is no statutory limit as far as when you can start treating. But what insurance companies utilize is the portion of the act which says that the things that they need to pay for, right? The things that they're going to compensate you for.
Or even making a claim, right?
Right.
Yep. Notifying the insurance company within this time frame.
Exactly. So, well, that's what I hadn't gotten there, but that's exactly right. So there's essentially three things. You have to file a claim.
Yeah.
And it really has to be in writing within a year. Okay. In terms of a PIP claim, for a bodily injury claim, that is a claim against another driver, you have 3 years, and that's the statute of limitations. So there's a strict limit as far as that goes for getting a claim filed, as far as like a lawsuit goes, or getting a claim filed for a PIP claim, because if you fail to meet those deadlines, you get nothing.
So, مثل ما تفضل المحامي بأنه أنت تسأل شنو الوقت المدة. إحنا كل ما أسرع كل ما أفضل وأحسن للقضية. بس ميشيغان عندها قانونيا عندك لازم خلال السنة الأولى حتى على مود تندفع كل البلات والمصاريف الطبية لك سنة إلى حد سنة لازم تخبر الانشورنس كتابة، وللعطل وضرر عندك 3 سنين لازم قبل ال3 سنين وقبل السنة. قبل السنة لازم للطبابة، وللعطل وضرر عندك 3 سنين.
But there's more than that too, because even though, let's assume that you filed a claim within a year, okay, you've given them proper notice, they're still not necessarily obligated to pay unless essentially there are 3 things that are met, which is it has to be related to the accident. The treatment has to be related to injuries sustained in the accident.
So why did Tamara say the earlier the better? Because the later they're going to, you know, the insurance company can claim that there was something else that happened within these 3 months that caused your injury, not the car accident.
And that's exactly what I was going to get at. So the relatedness is the first thing, and that is if you were in an accident in, say, January, and you don't treat at all until April, the very first thing the insurance company is going to say is, so did you have a slip and fall sometime in the last 3 months? Did you get involved in another accident? Why would you wait 3 months? They are immediately going to question that. So while there isn't a limit necessarily in terms of when you have to start treating, it is going to be harder to show the relatedness to the accident the further out you wait.
ليش نقول كل ما أقرب كل ما أحسن؟ لأنه إذا طولت 2 3 4 أشهر ورحت بعدين للطبيب، أولا الانشورنس هاي يعني عندهم أحلى شيء عندهم. ليش طولت هالقد؟ هل أنت بخلال هالفترة وقعد انطخيت صار عندك غير حادث، كنت مسافر، يريدون يعرفون شنو صار خلال كل شيء يصير خلال 4 أشهر، هو ثاني يوم كل شيء يقدر يصير. فجدا مهم بأنه رأسا واحد يروح يشوف طبيب. أبسط شيء من الحادث بس روح الأرجنت كير، روح للمستشفى يعني على الأقل، لأنه وراء 4 أشهر لو 3 أشهر شلون راح نثبت بأنه هاي الإصابة إلها علاقة بحال، لأنه إحنا علينا إحنا لازم نثبت للإنشورنس بأنه شخص الأضرار هي إلها علاقة بالحادث. فالطبيب يقدر يكتب بس هالقد، لأنه إذا مكتب صحيحة من وقت الإفادة تصير غير أشياء. ما يطب الحراقين الأخرى تفاصيل أخرى. فلذلك إحنا نفضل بأنه المصاب مباشرة يروح بحيث تسجل شنو الأشياء اللي كان مصاب بها.
Right. And the other thing is that also the other 2 things has to be reasonable and necessary as well as related to the accident. So if, for example, let's say after 3 months you start treating and all of a sudden you get an immediate surgery, they're going to want to know why. You know, not only how is it related, but is this a reasonable course of action as the first course of action?
Kind of legal terms under a statute,
right?
You know, which we can explain. Yeah.
لازم احنا همنا نثبت بانه هاي ورا 3 أشهر العطل اللي عندك لو الاذيه اللي عندك اللي راح تروح تتعالج على مودها تكون ضروريه، العلاج ضروري لهالشيء، هذا هم لازم نثبته. هوايه اكو اشياء لازم نثبت ونشتغل صح. اكو هوايه ايش يصير بالقضيه شو ماكو شيء، احنا كلش هوايه شغل ورا بالمكاتب.
نعم.
احنا نشتغل يعني عن للزبون. we got that look. Yes.
He starts fidgeting a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
ليش تخافين؟
لا يعني مو
وقت خلاص.
She's afraid you're gonna say time
يعني مو من تتحرك اخاف من النظرات. تبي تباوع عينه بنظرات غريبه.
He starts waving his hand.
No, the looks, his eyes. Oh my God, that was so quick.
Yeah.
Well, so the short answer to your question is no, there's not a limit in terms of the time you have to treat, but there are practically several.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna finish up with. So we didn't go over the 2 main things of value of your case, right? So next week we're going to be discussing 2 things that can bring up the value of your case: medical treatment,
yes,
and 2, what we call excess medical and excess wage loss.
اوكي الوقت
Excess
خلص.
economics.
Excess economics,
بقت
that's right.
شغلتين بانه لازم نكملها الاسبوع القادم بانه شنو نسوي قضيتك حتى تصير اعلى شيء، بانه علاجك وشنو الاشياء الاضافيه اللي نقدر نحصلها حتى نسويها بعد اكبر.
Last thing. So if you can translate one more thing for me tomorrow. So I'm looking for 4 or 5 people that I can use for a radio commercial. So is it okay if they call you, Saad?
Yes, it's okay.
Maybe you do a quick audition. I want people that speak Arabic. We're going to do a really funny commercial for our next one. It's going to be very entertaining. And yeah, so there is going to be
come with them, right?
Yes, there's going to be, for each person that we do hire for this, they will be paid $100 each person, and it should only take not more than 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh, you need people.
Yes, I need people.
المحامي لورنس محتاج 4 إلى 5 أشخاص يسوون دعاية وياه بالعربي، تطول من 5 إلى 10 دقائق، والأجور هي $100 للشخص.
حلو.
Okay.
طبعا اعتيادي انت اول وحده.
One last thing. No, I'm kidding.
مستمعينا مشاهدينا الاعزاء، كنا مع المحامي لورنس قاجي والمحامي جان شرودر. Thank you Mr.
Thank you.
Lawrence. Thank you Mr. John.
Thank
وشكرا
you.
جزيلا اختنا العزيزه تمارا.
أهلا وسهلا.
مستمعينا نلتقيكم ان شاء الله في الاسبوع القادم وحلقه جديده.